This is the story of Anthony Gignac, a man who spent decades pretending to be a Saudi prince, tricking billionaires, celebrities, and big companies out of millions. But how could someone who wasn't royalty convince so many people that he was? How does a man with no real power or money end up living a life of luxury simply by pretending? You'd think it would be impossible, but Gignac pulled it off with surprising ease. Armed with a fake identity and a hunger for the high life, he convinced people to believe his story until one small detail gave him away. And that tiny mistake led to the unraveling of his entire scheme. About Anthony Gignac. Anthony Gignac was no ordinary con artist. For over 30 years, he lived the life of a Saudi prince, convincing some of the richest and most powerful people in the world that he was a member of the Saudi royal family. That is insane, fooling people for 30 whole years without being caught. This is not a piece of cake. None of us can roam around with a fake identity and scam people. But Anthony did, using the fake name, Prince Khalid bin Al Saud. With the help of this fake title, he dined with celebrities, stayed in luxurious penthouses, and jetted around the globe in private planes. He wasn't just pretending, he was living the life of royalty, all without a single drop of royal blood. Anthony's past. Anthony Gignac's story began in Colombia. A slight sad touch to his story is that he was orphaned at a young age. He and his brother were adopted by a family in the US, but Gignac's childhood was anything but stable. By the time he was a teenager, he had already begun impersonating wealthy individuals to gain access to a world he longed for: luxury, riches, and power. It means the bloke was always up to some shady mess, but it wasn't just any wealthy identity Gignac sought. He aimed for royalty. He adopted the persona of Prince Khalid bin Al Saud, a fake member of the Saudi royal family. This wasn't a random choice, as we all know that Saudi royalty is synonymous with opulence and influence, and Gignac knew that assuming such a role would open doors to exclusive clubs, private jets, and million-dollar deals. His desire to live in wealth, combined with his natural charm and attention to detail, allowed him to convince many that he truly was royalty. Over the years, Gignac fooled countless people, living in luxury hotels, driving expensive cars, and enjoying the benefits of his elaborate scam. And you know what is the most interesting fact? Of all the people in this world, he even convinced billionaires like Jeffrey Soffer, a Miami real estate developer, to give him gifts worth thousands of dollars. Gignac once said, "I was addicted to the life, the private jets, the fancy dinners, and people treating me like royalty. I couldn't stop." Makes sense. The lust for money and luxury would not stop any human being. If we begin telling the crimes and frauds of Anthony Gignac, his biggest one was impersonating a Saudi prince, Sultan bin Khalid Al Saud, to live an extravagant lifestyle. Over several years, Gignac defrauded more than 26 victims out of $8 million. He convinced investors that he would invest $440 million into luxury properties like the Fontainebleau Miami Beach Hotel. His deception was so elaborate that he drove a Ferrari with fake diplomatic plates and maintained an apartment adorned with a Sultan nameplate on the door. Very strategic, very smart, but Anthony should have done more research. The ruse fell apart when one victim saw him eating pork. If you do not know already, then let me tell you that it's prohibited for Muslims to eat pork. Dude did not do his research properly. If you acting like someone from another religion, why not study a fact or two about their eating habits? Gignac's obsession with luxury had to ultimately lead to a big downfall. His most significant legal troubles arose from his extensive use of wire fraud. By impersonating royalty, he manipulated investors across international borders, persuading them to wire millions into his accounts. His false promises of large investments, backed by fake diplomatic credentials, lured many into transferring large sums of money. Gignac would then funnel the money into his luxury lifestyle, buying items like Rolex watches, yachts, and lavish real estate. US prosecutors later stated that his fraud network was an international scheme involving millions of dollars and stretched over 3 decades. In addition to wire fraud, Gignac was also charged with aggravated identity theft. He went to great lengths to maintain his royal persona, including acquiring fake passports, diplomatic papers, and other documents that allowed him to pass off as an official member of the Saudi royal family. He used these documents to bolster his credibility in front of high-profile investors, bilking them out of millions. In court, the prosecutor noted that Gignac's operation was sophisticated, using stolen identities to weave a convincing illusion. Beyond wire fraud and identity theft, Gignac was also involved in outright theft. He would convince people to gift him expensive items, such as artwork, jewelry, and luxury vehicles, under the pretense of his supposed royal status. As part of his broader financial crimes, he laundered the stolen money through a web of fake accounts and properties. His victims included hotel owners, celebrities, and business people, many of whom lost significant amounts. By the time of his 2017 arrest, Gignac had been living off the spoils of his scams for decades, with the stolen amount estimated at $8 million. The question arises, was Anthony capable of pulling such a huge scam without any support? Well, while Anthony Gignac may have appeared to be the lone architect of his grand con, it's hard to imagine how he could have orchestrated such an elaborate scam without some kind of assistance, or at least enabling circumstances. The facade of being a Saudi prince wasn't something one could easily maintain alone, especially when it involved high-profile interactions with wealthy individuals and business moguls across multiple continents. Gignac had surely a knack for surrounding himself with people who either willingly or unknowingly helped him in his deception. For starters, he relied on a network of enablers, including real estate agents, bankers, and legal professionals who helped him carry out various financial schemes. These people were either fooled by his charm or, in some cases, didn't bother to question his supposed royal status. It's said that many of these professionals were so dazzled by his wealth and apparent power that they overlooked the oddities in his story. For instance, Gignac was known to drive a Ferrari with diplomatic plates, a flagrant sign of his supposed royal status, which likely fooled many into thinking he was legitimate. Furthermore, his success was also fueled by a lack of due diligence from his victims. Wealthy investors, like those in Miami, were so eager to make quick deals that they neglected to verify his background. Some even believed Gignac's claims of wanting to invest $440 million into luxury properties. In this environment, it was very easy for him to convince people to lavish him with gifts, luxury cars, watches, and even real estate, all of which helped him maintain the illusion of royalty. It's also worth noting that Gignac was not working in isolation. He had to have had assistance, whether directly or indirectly, in forging documents, arranging meetings, and laundering the millions of dollars he scammed. His ability to move freely within high society without suspicion shows that he was either very convincing or that people were perhaps too eager to believe in the grandeur of a prince. So while Gignac was undoubtedly the central figure in the scam, he was able to thrive due to the enabling environment and the support, whether passive or active, that came from various people around him. Fall of the Saudi prince. As mentioned earlier, Anthony's not-so-Muslim lifestyle raised eyebrows and made people question his authenticity. It wasn't just the pork incident that turned heads, but also his habit of showing off expensive gifts and privileges that people thought were reserved for royalty. Gignac's downfall began when members of the Sofa family, who owned the Fontainebleau Miami Beach Hotel, grew suspicious of his lavish promises. They were some of his biggest victims, having been convinced that he was a potential investor willing to put $440 million into the hotel. However, things started to unravel when they noticed inconsistencies in his behavior, such as his lack of knowledge about Saudi culture and traditions. It was reported that one of them observed Gignac eating pork, which immediately raised doubts among those who knew the real Saudi royals' strict adherence to dietary laws. The Soffer family eventually became suspicious enough to start asking more probing questions, which led to their realization that they had been scammed. It was they who helped trigger an investigation into Gignac's false identity, as they were among the first to connect the dots and alert authorities. During his scams, Gignac was known to frequent exclusive Miami venues, often showing off his supposed princely status. Eventually, his story started to collapse under pressure. Authorities were notified, and after Gignac's arrest in 2017, and the investigation revealed the extent of his crimes, the authorities discovered his theft of nearly $8 million across various scams post-arrest. After Anthony Gignac's arrest, the media was flooded with reports about his shocking deception. Gignac was sentenced to 18 years and 8 months in prison in 2019, and he was ordered to pay back the $8 million he stole from his victims. The case drew significant media attention, especially with the release of ABC's The Con series, which delved into his fraudulent activities. Although some supporters may have been skeptical of his crimes, public opinion largely turned against him due to the scale of the fraud and the emotional toll it took on victims. His story set an example. Even though he was ordered to pay back the victims, it was highly unlikely that they would have gotten all their money back. As we speak, Gignac is still serving his sentence at the Federal Detention Center in Miami and is expected to remain incarcerated until at least 2033.